5. I'll go up to here. There we go. Okay. I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit. Hi, everyone. Is anyone joining yet? I'm going to move back just a little bit. You guys get to see me outside today. You guys get my camper is my background. How do you like that? Let's see if that looks a little better. It's funny, like on my screen and on my phone. Okay, turn it a little more. I think you guys are doing good. Hello, everyone. I'm going to do a little moving around. Get all set up here. Okay, I think that's a little better. Hey, hi, everyone. I'm seeing a comment come through on YouTube, so I can watch. There's one that I'm excited about today's live. We have a lot of fun things to talk about. I'm going to click on the comments bar here. Oh, yay. Okay, there's a bunch of people. Okay, and I guess the comments have come across on YouTube. I was hoping they would. Well, hello, everyone. I'm a little bit further away from my computer today. I might try and figure out how I can talk. Let's see if I can see them on Facebook. Oh, yes, there we go. Okay, I can see comments on Facebook. Excellent. Hello, everyone. Hello, Ashley and Kenzie. I know. I have a camper in my background. How do you like that? But it's such a beautiful day today in Utah. I wanted to do this outside, especially because I wanted to like do a little soil tutorial with you guys. Hey Leslie, everyone, they're all things are coming in. Hey Anna, hey Paige, Deborah, Marlon, hello everyone. Okay, the audio is a little choppy. Okay, um, let's see. Maybe I'll move it a little closer. Hang on. I had this big like mic right here that I got that I was hoping would pick up voice a little better. Let's see. Hopefully, I'll like try and direct my voice right at the mic. Hopefully, that's a little bit better. Um, and although I am a camper lady. I would stay in my motorhome or camper any day compared to hotel. My terms might not be safe. That's right. There's nothing like family time when you're squeezing through. We have this little camper. We like to go way, way, way deep into the mountains, and so we have like a smaller one that like has like a lift kit on it, and so um, it's not like luxurious in any way, but it's fun. We get to take it like the craziest places that a lot of other bigger campers can go. So, okay, all right, let's get started. I have so much to show you today. So we are going to, I'm going to show you what I do when I plant river roses. And today we're going to focus on, I'm going to unbox roses right in front of you. I have not opened these at all. So you're going to get to see them with me for the first time. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the varieties in here because I ordered some roses that are my sleeper roses, like roses where like not a lot of people maybe know about them, or I feel like they are really good performers and make me a little heads up, a spotlight on them. So it's a beautiful day here in Utah. It is almost 60 degrees, which is crazy for February in Utah. We're gonna have a very, very dry season. I think it's not good. So I might have to do a drought tolerant vlog. Roses that are drought tolerant. So okay, let's get started. So a couple things we're going to do. We're going to unbox roses. We're going to talk about soaking roses. We're going to prune, 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 shoots, not roots, right? And we're going to talk about soil selection, because there's there's a few really key components to being successful bare roots. Number one, top top line, number one most important thing that you need to do is moisture. Moisture, moisture, moisture. Like, you can fail at a lot of other things, but you can't fail at moisture. Okay. Second most important thing to waking up your bare roses is temperature. We talked about that a little bit. And what we do at Grace Rose Farm, we have all of these commercial coolers, and we keep them at 35 degrees. We keep them very specific, at a very specific degree, but we water and water and water those. Even though the metabolic rate is really low, moisture is so important for bare root roses, even when they're not actively growing. Okay, super important fact. And I'll show you what we do in our boxes and in our shipping to ensure that we try are controlling the moisture from all the way from the time that we receive the plant all the time until it gets to your porch. And then it's your responsibility. So keep in mind, moisture, the number one thing that is important for roses when you first get them, bare root roses when you get them. Second thing is temperature. Okay, they've come to you in a 35-degree situation. They can actually go colder and be fine. You know, think about roses outside. I live in a zone 6. It gets -10 here. Pretty regularly, once or twice in the winter. They can handle it colder. Some roses can handle a lot colder than that. So they can handle the cold. It just keeps them kind of dormant. When they get to you, though, if it's shipped to you on a really cold, like it's -20, really bitter for some reason, you got them and you're just having this crazy cold snap. Most likely they're fine. They're in a box. They're in a plastic bag. There's a little greenhouse with humidity around them. But it's just something to keep in mind. And the third most important thing is your soil selection. Soil matters. Okay, it matters a lot. Doesn't matter as much as moisture. Doesn't matter as much as temperature. But it's the third most important thing. Bare root roses. So selecting a good soil is key. I can't tell you, when I first started here in April last year, how many pictures customer service sent me of people sending in their pictures of their roses with the leaves coming out and all brown and crisp, and I could see exactly what was happening. And a lot of it had to do with wrong soil selection. It can be a little confusing when you go to the garden center and see all these bags of soil. You're probably just like, great, soil, I'm just going to grab a bag of soil and go. They are very, very different. And today we're going to do a fun little thing. I have all of these different things. We're going to look at like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like 18 different soils and ingredients. And we're going to talk about each one. And we're going to talk about when you're making a selection, which looks, you know, everybody's different where you live, your soil selection in your area. I live in a really, really rural area. I don't have a big, beautiful independent garden center near me. I have to get soil like at Walmart or Ace Hardware, places like that. And so a lot of what you're going to see is what I can find. I also have like farm stores that have sometimes a little more specific things that I'm looking for. So I'm going to show you what I do in my circumstance and give you the tools to go out and shop in your circumstance, because the things that you're going to find locally are going to be probably different than what I can find. You can pretty much find Miracle-Gro type products everywhere you go. So we're going to talk about some of those today, because I think that's like everyone can find that. But there's a lot of regional soil brands. There's a lot of like, you know, some that are like, excuse me, packaged for certain chain stores and things like that. And so really, you just need to give you the tools to be able to look at a soil bag and know, okay, this will work for me. So that's what we're going to do today. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up my box. I'm going to take you through the whole step. And I can't see your questions from here, but I think what I'll do is I'll go through the whole step, and then I'll kind of go through the comments. Okay, so let's open the bare roses. First of all, I'm going to say this is our big box. This is our 18-count box. We designed it specifically with better bare root roses in mind. We designed it to fit 18 roses with longer roots. We do not cut off roots, neither should you, although sometimes you might need to. We're going to talk about that today. Okay, we're going to talk about pot selection and the anatomy of a good container. Okay, so we designed these boxes specifically to hold really long bare roots and deep enough so we didn't have to squish too much, okay, but still keep as good a shipping prices as we could. So let's open this up. This is our 18-count box. And I promise you, I did not open this before. You're literally seeing this with me. So that's how much trust I have in our grower, in our team, in the process, in the horticulture, okay? It all comes down to great horticultural practice when it comes to shipping bare root products, no matter if it's roses or fruit trees or whatever. So one of the first things you're going to notice is that we ship in big plastic bags, and they are zip tied tight. Okay, so I'm going to pull this out. Well, actually, I'm just going to leave it here. This might be a little easier. We put a little tiny greenhouse in our box. This is Grace's greenhouse. You can think of it that way. Okay, because what was the number one most important thing? Moisture. We are creating a little humid environment inside this box. Because for some of you, you'll get your box 2 days after you order, or once the labels get printed. And some of you, it might take 4 or 5 days across the country. This piece is really important, that they get wrapped in plastic and stay and keep moist, because canes use moisture, roots use moisture, even when they're dormant. Okay. And because it's coming out of 35 degrees and it's going into warmer temperatures at a shipping trailer or an airplane or sitting on a tarmac or wherever, or sitting on your front porch for 6 hours while you're at work until you get home, it's important that there's moisture in there as it's naturally going to start warming up, right? Because when it warms up, those plants use moisture. So humidity levels are really, really important. This is why we use nice, thick industrial bags. It's why we use a zip tie to shut it tight, and while we kind of roll it down. There's a cute little pink bow on here. We always have a pink ribbon, which I think is fun. So that's why we do it, because that's how important moisture is, okay? So from this point forward, you need to focus on your moisture, okay? So the last thing you want to do is open this, look at them, and then leave them. As soon as you open this bag, open it up here, moisture is starting to be lost, okay? Oh yeah, nice and moist. So what you want to see is the inside of this bag, lots of moisture. I look down in here. Yep, everything's nice and moist. The canes are moist, or the fruits are moist. We don't flood them. What we do is we literally just use like one of those pump sprayers, and we spray them down. We want a fine mist down in there to get nice and moist, to stay down in there, and then we close it right away. Really, really important. Okay, so let's take a look at these. What we got? Okay, I'm putting on some gloves. Oh, wow, these are nice. Okay, what do we got here? Light years away. Look at that beast. This is a Weeks rose. This is a Christian Bedard rose. Beautifully healthy plant. I put this as one of my sleeper roses because it really is. It's a newer genetic. It's got great disease resistance, gorgeous color, very floriferous. Look at those canes. Look at those roots. I'm going to look all through it. The first thing you should do is you pull a root out, look under its skirt. Just do a double check. Now, we do all this for you, right? Number one, we've got a great grower. Number two, we highly train our people in our line. You see pictures of them all the time, right? Natalia and Leo and Ramin and everybody there at Great Rose Farm. We've done a lot of training. We've got pictures on the wall because we want to catch anything, if there happens to be anything, and make sure it doesn't get to you. But it's always good to check, okay? Because this is a point that you can catch something and to prevent anything else. So you always just take a good look. Now, this one is budded. It's a 2-year budded. And you can see there's like a swelling where it's budded. And that is normal and it is healthy. And it's perfectly fine. This is a beautiful rose. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put this in a tub of water, okay? So I've got some buckets of water over here. They're 5-gallon buckets. I tried to have everything right here. Now I get asked all the time, Heidi, should I put anything in the water? So number one, you don't have to. Okay. This plant has everything it needs to wake up inside of it. Okay. It has everything it needs. But if you want to, you can use something like a Super Thrive or Fertilome Root Stimulator. Um, these are not feeding the plant nutrients. Okay. Remember what I told you? You should not fertilize brand new bare roots. Do not do that. These have root initiation hormone. This one has a vitamin called B1. It's derived from, I think, about thiamine, maybe. So Super Thrive has one thing in it, and it just helps with new root initiation. Um, the Fertilome Root Stimulator, which I don't have anyone that sells that locally, so I'm going to have to order some online because I use it all the time. It has this, and it has IDA in it, which is another root stimulator. It's a hormone that helps promote roots, and it also has a wetting agent and a surfactant in it, which what that means is it helps it stay moist and it helps it with absorption. So if you want to try something, I would say this can be found anywhere. I can find this at my local Walmart. Everybody carries this. Or Fertilome's Root Stimulator. Those are my two suggestions. Make sure you read the label, okay? This only needs 1.5 teaspoons for 5 gallons of water. I only put 1.5 teaspoons in these. That's all you need. You don't need more. More is not more when it comes to fertilizer or doing anything with plants. Generally, most of the time, less is more. Okay, so if you want to do something, you can. You don't need to though. Okay, especially if they're coming nice and hydrated and they're healthy and you're following everything else, you don't need to do this. But it can help. It can help initiate growth a little bit faster. It can help initiate some root growth. So it is an option for you. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do, you're going to take it out, you're going to take a look at it, and you're going to get soaking right away. No delay. Get those bare roots in water, okay? So you want to make sure all of the roots are underneath the water, okay? You want to make sure that water level, you don't want any feeder roots sticking out. You don't want, sometimes the roots are so long that they stick up out of the 5-gallon bucket. Sometimes you have to just swirl them around a little bit or get big tubs and kind of lay them down a little more. Okay. Another thing I do, another step I like to do, especially depending upon the circumstance. If you're outside and it's really hot that day, or if it's really windy that day, I like to just spritz stuff. Just get it soaking. I just buy a nice, good, professional sprayer that you put water in. I have a ton of these. I use them for all sorts of different things in gardening. Just give them a good spritz. You want to keep those canes moist. Okay, moisture. So get yourself a good little spray bottle like this. Now, I don't have irrigation right now in Utah. Our irrigation is off. So we have to use culinary water to water. So I don't have my hoses hooked up, but I will once I get the plant. I'll hook that up and get them watered before I kind of put them aside and kind of put them under some mulch until it's time. But you can also just take a hose, spray them down. You can buy a little hose mister and just spritz them down, or it's as simple as just getting a spray bottle and spritzing them. Okay, moisture loss. You can see. Let's pull another one out of here. Here's Quest for Zest. Guys, this one, if you love fragrance and you love ruffles, you need Quest for Zest and disease resistance. Look how enormous this 2-year budded Quest for Zest is. It's a beautiful, like light, sunny yellow, and it's so fragrant. It smells like lemon. It's a great name, Quest for Zest. It's just like you zested a lemon. So, you're going to see that you'll get some little bud eyes starting to push already, because that's how quick roses grow. You pull them out of the cooler, they're out in a little bit warmer environment for 2 to 5 days. So they're needing water right away. Those buds, everything along here needs moisture, okay? Moisture. Maybe I'll make a t-shirt that says moisture. My sister hates the word moisture. Moist. Something about the word moist that she hates. Okay? How these all look really great. I ran out of room in my buckets because I wasn't going to unpack all of these for you, but I do want to show you a couple. This is Devotion. This is an awesome rose, and this is budded onto um, multiflora. You can see sometimes you'll get ones that are like a little bit different shapes, and like that's okay. So you're wondering how that's planted. You would plant it like this, okay? And there's a little hook there, but that's all right. That's how it grew. So sometimes you'll get, especially with the flora, sometimes you'll get roots that might wrap around a little bit. Try and just tease them loose a little bit if you can. If you can't, it's okay to remove one or two so it's not circling or girdling around it. If you feel like it's gonna, like this one is, it's not too bad. I probably wouldn't, but there is one that's kind of like circled. There must have been a little rock there or something, and it grew itself around. Um, but it's okay to just gently snip that off, kind of tease that out. Okay. Normally I say don't prune your roots, but every once in a long while there's a reason why you should. Okay. So for that reason, I took that off so it doesn't girdle. Okay. So, let's see, what else do we got here? Oh wait, no, I do have another bucket. Sorry, I do have another bucket. I'm gonna put these down in my bucket. Let's see what else we got. The request for zest. We'll put that down here. So these barrel roses are enormous. Just so you know, you're only gonna fit maybe 3 in a 5-gallon bucket. So if you ordered a lot more than that, get yourself some kiddie pools or galvanized tubs or anything you can find. Hold water. Just make sure you sanitize it first. Like you could use Lysol spray on the insides of it. You can do like a bleach mix and sanitize it. It's always good sanitary practice to just clean things up before you work with any plant. So, nothing but class. Another awesome week's rose. Look at those beautiful canes. So I'm gonna look underneath the skirt, look at it, looks good, get it soaking. I'm gonna do a little misting. Okay. I'm putting them down here. You can't see them, they're below me, but they're right down here. Make sure they get misted because as soon as they get out in the sun, they're gonna start using the moisture quick. Okay, what else we got here? Oh, Easy Spirit. That's a great one. That's a beautiful one. Fragrance, has a beautiful white color. Pretty lady rose. Look at these. All sorts of consistent. Look under the skirt. Everything looks really good on these. I'm very happy. Good job, fulfillment team. Keeping everything moist and looking healthy. You can always tell the long-term care of a bare rose when you pull one out. You can't hide if something poor happened along the way, because you'll start to see stress. So Kinkara Sunrise, another great rose. This one is budded on multiflora. Looks really, really healthy. Okay, we got some good ones. So let's take a look at, I already have some that were soaking from before. So, okay, if you have to do something else for a little while, take your spray bottle, spritz everything down, and wrap those berries back up. Okay? Make sure that moisture, you lock that moisture in while you're working in between things, right? You don't leave them laying out in the air or the sun or anywhere as much as possible, because moisture is the most important thing. So that's what I'm going to do to put aside, and they're perfectly fine. They're perfectly okay to sit in there because that humidity, they stay in there. Okay. Okay, let's talk about, I'm going to bring over the bucket here. I've had some soaking for a little while. One of these, I think I just put this one in. Yeah, so we're just number 10 that we soaked these for 24 hours is my suggestion. You can do longer, but you need to change your water every 24 hours, once a day. You want to soak it longer. I've soaked bare roses for, not gonna lie, there's been times I've soaked it for like 2 weeks because I was super busy. I just make sure to dump it out and put some more water back in. So if I was waiting on a soil delivery or didn't have enough pots or just life, right? It's just important that if you're going to do that, you put them out of the wind, not in direct sun, somewhere like shady, somewhere away from wind. And it's still important that you go out with your spray bottle or your hose, whatever, and just mist your cane. Okay, a couple times a day if you can, and make sure that those bare root roses aren't sticking out like this, right? You want to submerge them all the way up to the bud union or the crown, depending upon if it's an unroot or budded rose. You can also take our plastic bags and put them around them and create a little humidity dome. But it's important that you don't put them in direct sunlight because just like a greenhouse, it can heat up super fast in there. Now you'll have all that water to make it nice and humid, but sometimes it can still get too hot. It can burn any tender new buds that are coming out. If you're going to do that, make sure you put it in like a shady area, in a garage, somewhere where it can not burn the plant. So never put that in direct sunlight. But that does help, especially if it's going to be a little while, or if it's really windy or something. Go out and protect it with the plastic bag that it comes in. It's a really good bag. So let's say we're done with our soaking period. Now it's time to plant. So the first thing you want to do, well, the first thing you have to do before you even get to planting is you have to make sure you have a couple things, right? You have to have your soil, you have to have containers. You've got to have a good set of pruners. These are my Bacos. I've had these for 25 plus years. I've only had to sharpen them a couple times. They're like the best, most professional pruners on the planet. Feltos don't even touch them. I love Feltos too, but these are way better. These are Baco. Had these a long, long time. I got them in college in exchange for, I did a landscape design for someone, and they gave these to me, and it was like my prized possession, because of course in college I was super poor, and I could have never afforded these. So I'm grateful I have them, best pruners ever on the market. So make sure your pruners are sharp, make sure they're clean. Every winter I always go through and I clean them. Maybe I'll file them and sharpen a little bit, put a little oil in there, because you're gonna need them. You're gonna use them a lot when it comes with roses. Okay. The second thing, next thing you need to make sure you have a good container. So let's talk about the anatomy of a good container. Okay. Let me show you. I'm sorry. This is, if you're like me, you have about 5,000 different sizes, shapes, and colors of containers laying around. If you're into gardening, it's part of it, especially old nursery containers. I've got oodles of these, especially for roses. I ordered these specifically for roses because they're deeper. This is our estate size pots. We call them estate size, sometimes also called a 5-gallon California top hat. It's designed, it's a lot deeper. It's not as wide, but it's deep because with roses, I mean, look at these roots. They need to be deep, right? You need depth. So as much as width is good, depth is more important in my mind for roses. So I wouldn't plant a bare root rose, especially our roses, anything smaller than this. This is the smallest I would go. And this is what nursery growers use. And so we know there's proven millions and millions of roses are grown really well in this size pot with this type of input. So I would go this or larger, okay? So you gotta have good pots, and the depth is really important. The next most important thing is you gotta make sure you have good drainage holes. So obviously if you're using a nursery pot, I mean, they're designed for drainage, right? So this 5-gallon pot has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drainage holes on the sides, okay? You can kind of use that as a standard. Now let me show you a container that I purchased today. Like I went to Walmart because that's all I have near me. And I wanted to look for a container. If you want something deco, if you're going to do something, and that this container is going to be its permanent location. There's a couple things that you're going to want to look for. Number one is depth. Okay, I really like this pot because it's deep. I also like it because it's wide the whole way down. This is a 16-inch wide container. Depth on this, I didn't measure it, but it's probably 20, I would say. So I like that about this. Something you have to think about with shape, like right now, a lot of people love that kind of base shape, that urn. You have to think of your rose and look how the roots grow. They don't grow down and into a V like this, like an urn would. Urns are okay, but you just need to make sure that the bottom is wide enough to substantiate how a rose will naturally grow. You'll be more successful if you're not cutting and shoving in, okay? Because in the end, the top is only as good as your bottom, okay? Keep that in mind. So this is my ideal from what I could find today. If I was going to plant one bare root rose in a pot that I wanted to have in here for maybe 2 years, I think it'd be okay in here for about 2 years. So depth, width, I would say minimum 16 inches is probably good if you want it to be in there. You can go wider, but depth is important. The next most important thing, and this is really important, is drainage holes for these things. So almost all containers, especially cheaper ones, are not going to come with drainage holes, or there'll be one and there'll be a little plug at the bottom like this one. So the surest way to kill your rose, as much as we say moisture is important, you can also drown roses. They can't handle sitting in water for long periods of time. They just can't. They need good drainage, but consistent moisture. A lot of plants are like that, but especially roses. So your drainage is super important. So here's what I do when I come home with a bucket like this. What I do is I try and decide, like, okay, this probably holds so many gallons of soil. And there should be at least one hole for every approximate gallon. So this one, I'm going to say holds about 10. So I want to have 10 nice either little holes, evenly spaced around, or several larger holes. So the bottom of this one is like, there's not a whole lot of choices. You can see it's designed where it's probably going to flow out the bottom here. So I'm just going to make a whole bunch of holes, evenly spaced around the base of this. And how you do that, how I do it, everyone's different, is I borrow my husband's drill, and the biggest drill bit I can find. This is just plastic. First of all, I'm going to take that plug out, and I'm just going to go through. Gotta make sure it goes right. And I'm just gonna drill like 10 holes around. As many, probably 10. I'm gonna do at least 10. So far I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm gonna put one right in the middle. Great. Okay, so I have 10 drainage holes in this bucket that I think holds about 10 gallons. So I just did them fairly evenly around. You can also, you can do bigger holes than this if you want to. The key really is like the type of soil that you put it in. If you're going to use big, huge, chunky rocks at the base of this, which I don't recommend them for roses, then I would make them bigger. But for my purposes, this is plenty of drainage holes. So one hole for every like gallon of soil or so. Okay. So you need your container. Next, you need a soil. Let's talk about soil a little bit. I have. Let's see what that is. I went and got a whole bunch. Maybe I'll put a box up and put them on top of the box. That way you can see them. And I'll also bring the camera over here and show you a little closer. But your soil selection matters in a big way. And so we're going to talk a little bit about different types of soil, some of the different ingredients in soil, so that when you go shopping, you know what to look for. So first of all, I want to start with what I consider to be the absolute best soil for roses, and that is the custom mix that our estate roses come in. It is such a unique mix that's specifically formulated for roses. So it is the perfect mixture of drainage, but being light. A lot of times when you get into like high drainage soils, like pasture soils, it gets really heavy because there's a lot of sand in it. This does have sand in it, but it's really probably one of the best rose soil I've ever seen. And it's custom made by our grower. It is exclusively just for bare root roses, and it is the perfect soil for bare root roses. Highly drained, but it's the right weight. It's not too light like a seed starting mix, but it's not too heavy where the roses would like drown. So we're going to kind of compare things to this because this is what I think is considered to be the best. If you ever gotten a state rose from us, you can take a look at the soil. That's the type of soil you should be looking for. So let's take a look at some of the different types of soils out there. So in general, there are soils for potting and containers. There are soils for amending your soil, which is not meant to plant in. And then you have something in the middle called like a raised garden bed, which is kind of a hybrid. Okay. When you're planting in containers, it's really, really important. And I want you to learn from my mistakes. I've done this a long time. I've planted thousands of bare root roses, thousands, between retail and star roses plants, all different places. I've planted thousands of them. The one thing I've learned is that soil matters, and you get what you pay for. So let's take a look at some of those things, and I'll show you some of my mistakes along the way. You don't make them, okay? Let's take a look first at some of the ingredients in potting soil, because you should understand what the ingredients are so that you know what to look for. Because with marketing, the bad are all going to say different things. So the primary ingredients in most potting mixes that are designed for containers, which is important that it's different. You can't just shovel dirt from your lawn and put it in a container. You can, but you change the ecosystem entirely. The reason why it works in the ground is because it's connected to everything else, right? Drainage, the water, the air movement, the microbes, like everything. When you isolate a plant in a container, it's not its natural environment. It needs a specific mix in order for that plant to be successful. Okay, so the key thing you're looking for is the word potting. Some companies use the word soil with it. They'll use potting soil mix or potting mix. Sometimes it's really convoluted, and you won't see potting unless you read the instructions on the back. It might just say premium mix. The key is to make sure you read the instructions and make sure it's formulated specifically for potting or containers, if that's where you're going. Okay, if you're going to plant in containers, so we're going to talk about container stuff. Then we'll talk about planting directly in the soil, the amendment. Let's look at the ingredients. We have here some peat moss. This is straight peat moss. So peat moss is in most potting mixes. Peat moss is good and bad. The benefits of peat moss is that it can hold its weight in water. It's really good for drainage, and there's a lot of it in the world. Although I would say that it's not a very sustainable resource because it takes thousands of years to make peat moss. It is mostly degraded moss that's in like an anaerobic environment, like bogs. Most of it comes from Canada. There's been a lot of talk lately in the horticulture industry about changing, finding alternatives to peat moss. It's more expensive, it's not as environmentally sustainable, but the reality is it's actually a very good mix. However, when peat moss dries out, it's bone dry, it's incredibly difficult to rehydrate. So super important that when you're storing potting mixes, when you're, if you're like me, and I like to buy like bags of potting mix at the end of the year at a great deal on clearance, and you overwinter them for the next spring, you need to make sure. I always keep mine in a big garbage bag tote here, and I store it in a garbage tote so I can seal it, so it keeps some of that moisture in. Also helps keep life with it. So that's peat moss. Peat moss will be in most potting mixes. Okay. You also see a lot of perlite. This is straight perlite. Perlite is a type of mineral or a glass, if I remember right, that they superheat and it expands. And the reason why they put perlite in it is because it helps with drainage, and it helps with moisture retention a little bit too. So you almost always see different sizes of perlite in your potting mix. So there's that. And then there's vermiculite. Some vermiculite's used in different ways. I would say a lot of times you see it in like raised garden beds. I particularly really like vermiculite. Has a lot of really good uses. It's an expanded mineral that's superheated and it expands, and it has lots of like little ridges, and so it holds moisture. Like whenever you're planting seedlings and stuff, I always use like sprinkle vermiculite on the top because it creates a nice little humid environment. And so it's good in a soil mix because it helps maintain humidity in your soil without bogging it down. So vermiculite comes in all different coarseness. So you'll have fine, you'll have medium, you'll have really coarse. That's just the size of the granular. Um, so there's different applications for different things. So that's vermiculite. So those are, I think, probably some of the most primary ingredients. Other ingredients that you'll see on bags are like forest products. You see a really generic thing saying forest products. It's usually just the byproducts of forestry. So it's chopped up trees and bark and sticks and all sorts of things that So let's talk a little bit. I want to show you a potting mix and a garden soil. So let's see. Let me come up here and make sure okay, we're going to talk about topsoil. We're going to talk about a seed starting, and we're going to put that over here. We're going to talk about garden soil. Here's cactus soil. Here's compost. And then we have some other, we have raised bed. I'm going to kind of divide these into little groups, okay, because it's important. This is there, and rejuvenate that there. We'll go over here. Okay. I'll also do a close-up view. I'll bring my camera and show you later. But I want to show you first the things that I often see people planting in containers that you absolutely should not. So I'm going to come closer to the camera. Okay. First one, I got my label maker out. I love label making. Such a dork. Okay, this is topsoil. So topsoil, it's usually super cheap. This is why people often buy topsoil to use in containers, because it's a really economical way that they think they can save some money. However, topsoil is cheap for a reason. First of all, it has compost in it, and it usually has a lot of byproducts, and it's usually like really uneven in its texture. I know that's kind of hard to see in a camera. It's also very heavy, and it's really designed to be on top of your soil for like seeding grass or maybe amending your soil. Okay, it's meant to mix in. It's never meant to plant directly into large, substantial amounts of this. So you should never, ever, ever choose topsoil to plant roses in, because they will burn. It has compost in it. It's meant to amend, and it's also meant to just be a really light top dressing for maybe if you're seeding grass. That's the applications of topsoil. Okay, so that's topsoil. I don't know if you can see it very well. I'll take some really good pictures and show later too. Let's talk about another one that you never ever plant in. Okay, look at my label. Peeking out. This is garden soil. This is the most confusing part of picking soil, because when you see the word garden soil, you think, garden soil, I'm going to use that. My roses will work fine in containers. I have a funny story about this with my dad. So when my mom and dad got older, they used to have a huge vegetable garden growing up. And as they got older, they decided just to do some pots of like tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers on their back patio area. And every year, my dad would call me when he was at Walmart and he'd say, Heidi, what soil should I get? And I would always tell him, Dad, don't get garden soil, get potting mix. And every year, he bought garden soil. And they struggled. Garden soil is meant to amend the soil in your garden. It's not meant to plant directly into. It's not meant to put in containers and plant into. On your bag, if you see words like amend or correct or rejuvenate or mix in with, those are not ones that you plant directly into. If you plant directly into a garden soil, you could burn your roses. There's compost in here, and there are a lot of nutrients. You'll see, like this one has little fertilizer pebbles in it. So it's really important that you don't plant directly in garden soil. Okay, you're gonna see the bag. It's gonna be big, beautiful tomatoes on it and all these things, which is good. It's good to amend your soil. It's meant to make your soil drain better, add organic material, add some fertilizer to it. That's garden soil. So if you see those words like amend or compost, that's not for planting directly in. And the last one, um, yeah, the last absolute no is this is one of my mistakes that you're going to learn from me. Come on, okay? I one year I had to plant like 600 bare root roses in containers, and I could not find enough potting soil to ship to me. So I went to a local place that had like bulk soil, and they were out of potting soil, and so they offered me this flower and garden soil. And I was like really skeptical, but I went up to it and I like, I touched it and I looked at it. I'm like, okay, it looks like it's got some sand. I think it'll drain well. I think it'll be okay. Um, so I brought a huge truckload of this flower soil in. Okay, if you were here with me and you were holding Otto and our Otto and Sons proprietary soil mix is our grower, and this is twice as heavy as this. This stuff made me go crazy because it compacted, it got hard, it couldn't drain. I had a hard time getting it re-wet, wetting it again. My roses dried out and dried out and dried out. It was horrific. So whenever people are selling like big, huge batches of things, it's important to ask them what are the ingredients. I should have been more specific, but it was like one of those days where I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I think this will work. That was dumb. Don't do that. So this has no organic material in it. It's very, very heavy. Okay. So if you were to buy this flower soil, what this is good for is amending soil that maybe is um, or filling in an area or something like that. Don't go for the heavy non-organic material type of products because people regret it. That was a tough year for me. I had to water and water and water. It drove me crazy. Okay. The other two things that can be confusing and I would call borderline okay to use is something called raised garden bed soil. So it's interesting when you look closely at this raised garden bed soil, I would tell you it's probably one of the closest to our mix as far as weight, as far as the size of the particles, and as far as the contents. Raised bed is probably a pretty good option. Um, the only thing you have to be concerned about is some raised bed mixes have a lot of fertilizer in them. So raised bed mix is a way for people to do it's really designed for larger kind of like think of those like raised galvanized like 4x8 or bigger areas to kind of have a little bit cheaper fill in. Has a teeny bit of perlite, has kind of several different mixes in. I would say this would maybe be okay. This is like one of those ones where you probably need to open the bag, look at it, make sure it looks good, make sure it's not super odoriferous because the other thing, I'm sorry, I actually have another one. Oh, here it is. The other one is an absolute no is compost, planting directly in compost. This one in particular is called humus humus and manure. It was a compost. You don't ever plant directly into a compost. You will burn your bare root roses. You'll burn anything if you plant directly in the compost. Compost is meant to amend. Sometimes raised bed garden mix has a lot of compost in it and a lot of fertilizer. So it's just good to double check. I think raised bed mix is okay as long as it's not really, really strong in smell. You can tell something that has a lot of compost in it because like, oh yeah, it's like very earthy, very organic, very, very, very strong because there's so much nitrogen in there. All those nitrates, it smells. There's a lot of most likely poultry manure or cow manure or things like that. So you never, ever. Those are no's. I would say raised bed is a maybe. So let's talk about some ones that are yes. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. There's one more that I want to tell you. There's a no. I think this people would know this, but I think it's important. There's orchid um, uh, soil mixes out there. There's literally no soil in these. It's literally oh wait, sorry. I just bumped my computer. There we go. Orchid mixes are all like um, pieces of bark and wood. Um, this is actually kind of a good mulch for the top of your pots. That's the only thing I would use this for, or maybe to amend a soil. But orchid soil is very, very unique and definitely not good for roses to plant directly in. Okay, let's take a look at cactus soil. So I've had several people reach out to me and ask me if cactus soil would be good for roses because generally cactus needs to drain well. You think of cactus are in like really sandy soil, um, and it really depends on the cactus mix. I've seen cactus mix that is so heavy it's almost solid sand, and that's a hard no. You definitely don't want to mix plant bare roses in heavy soil. Remember what I learned from that flower soil that had like mostly really heavy particles in it? It's not good. This cactus mix, this is a Miracle-Gro cactus mix. I would say this one has a mix of like uh, peat moss. There's perlite in it. There is some sand. You can kind of see it. Like I would say this one would be okay. Um, so your cactus mixes, it just depends. Just lift up the bag. If the bag is heavy, like really heavy, then it's not good. Okay, it's not good for roses. Let's take a look at let's like another different one, and I'll show you some good ones and what I choose to use. This is a seed start mix. So seed start mix is it's really highly pulverized. Lots of peat moss, lots of vermiculite, lots of perlite, all broken down into teeny tiny little particles so that seeds have a better chance of having contact with soil to get moisture. Um, Seed starting mix is very expensive because there's more processing. I wouldn't suggest using seed starting mix because it's so expensive. And I also think maybe it would compact a little bit too much and also be a little too light um, for roses. So I would not suggest seed starting mix. I think it would be okay. I think you would be okay if you have a couple extra bags laying around. Um, it might be all right, but it's not my first choice. Okay. Okay. Now let's get into some ones that actually say potting mix on them. Let's do that. 1, 2, 3, and then I'll show you the rest. Okay. So there's about as many brands as potting mix as there are varieties of roses. So the key is really just, um, for me, I always buy like little bags of something new and take a look at it and experiment with it. Every situation is so unique. Um, I think for me, what I look for in a potting mix is that they don't have a lot of cheap filler. So when I say cheap filler, it's like big chunks of wood and sticks and things like that. That's just cheap filler. Doesn't mean it's not going to work. It just means it's maybe not as high quality. So this one's black gold. I've used black gold a lot in the past, and it's been perfectly fine for me as a container. I've used it on roses. This one is mostly a mix of peat moss. There's some forest products, which means sticks and bark and things like that, and perlite. It looks like there's maybe a little bit of slow release fertilizer in there. So something like that is perfectly fine. The weight is good. Compare it to like our really good mix. It's got a good weight, and it's formulated so that it will drain well, but hold moisture. This one is a Mother Earth Performance soil. This is the one where I had to read on the bag, is this for potting or what does performance soil mean? I had to read the instructions to find out that it was designed for potting. As you can see, this one's a lot lighter and has a ton of perlite in it. I would say I'm not a fan of huge quantities of perlite. It makes the mix really, really light. And it I don't know why, but anytime I've ever had a mix that has so many different like sizes and shapes of perlite, it just seems to not perform as well for me. But like that, so to me, I was like, I probably won't buy this one again. I think there's too much perlite in that mix, but it would be okay for Barrett Roses. This would be okay. Um, it gets down to the nitty gritty at this point, right? This one I really like. This one is Black Bear potting mix. And the reason why I like it is because they don't use perlite, they use biochar. So biochar is literally burnt organic material that that does a lot of things. Biochar is super good. If you can find potting mixes that have biochar or humate in them, those are like my go-to. And there's actually a product on Amazon that I had Nick can put in the link that has both humate and biochar. They're really, really good at helping to chelate nutrients in your soil. It promotes good microbial activity. It helps drainage and also helps with water holding capacity. So I like the fact that biochar helps support microbial activity, whereas perlite doesn't. Perlite is like almost kind of like sterile. It's more for drainage and moisture retention. For something that has biochar or humate in it, and I'm going to show you when I plant one of my Barrett roses that I always put humate and everything. It's my gardener's secret. It's my wink wink. But I really like this mix. It's got it's peat moss. It has some forest products and has biochar in it, and it's a nice weight. So to me, this is a really high quality soil, and I know this would perform really, really well with Barrett roses. So that's Black Bear potting mix. Like whether you can find that, but the key is like look for those things, right? Like it has biochar, it has some peat moss, and let's see, I think that might be all the ones I was going to show you. Okay, so let me take the camera, and I'm sorry, you're going to be dizzy, so just close your eyes for a second. So I want to show you, like, I'm going to put these all down. I'm going to put, and I'll show you that maybe you can't see it, maybe you can. But your soil matters. They're very, very, very different looking and for very good reason. So you can see some have more perlite, some is really heavy, so double right here. Add orchid mix. The soil matters. It really does. The last thing we're gonna talk about is this product right here. I really like it. Like I said, it's my gardener's secret. So I can get my camera back up. It's called humate, and I super love humate for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's naturally occurring. It's like basically concentrated compost in a way, but without all the like heavy nutrient release. So what it does, and I use this on my lawn, I use it in my vegetable garden, I use it everywhere. Like you can't use too much of this. It helps with moisture retention. It helps with the chelation of nutrients. It supports your microbiome. It's a little bit different than biochar, and the two together are like what I think are amazing. I have an incredible vegetable garden, not gonna lie. Everyone always asks me, Heidi, what is your key? Do you use a lot of fertilizer? Nope, I use humate. I use a little bit of an organic fertilizer, but when you use something that supports your microbiome, when you support moisture retention, moisture is the most important thing. Not too much, but just the right amount. Humate is an incredible additive to anything. So you can put it right on top of your lawn, all those sorts of things. So sounds like I'm trying to sell you a bag of humate, but I'm going to show you how I use it. Okay, soil 101. I hope that wasn't boring. Okay, so let's plant a Barrett rose. Let's do one together. I'm going to move this over. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, okay, so you know the phrase, do as I say, not as I do. I haven't cleaned and sanitized this pot yet, okay, because I just haven't. Normally when I start, if I'm using old pots, always wash them out, spritz a little bit of Lysol or some bleach solution on. You should always, it's a good thing to sanitize the pot. I didn't do it this time while I was learning, so naughty me. So let's plant a Barrett rose. Like I said, this is the smallest container I would consider planting a Barrett rose in. This is the estate size pot, okay? Nice and deep. What I do is take a look at this. What we have here. So light years away. Look at those beautiful roots. So where you want to show you. So how deep you plant this rose is really important. You want to make sure all these roots are covered, right? You don't want any moisture loss there. As much as you can in the container, try and bury the crown or the bud union below the line of soil. You can. So how I do this in a quick way, I've done this like so many times. What I do is I take my pot and I let every rose is unique. It's every rose is unique. You can't just go through and chop a whole bunch of the same. You need to take a look at each rose. So what I do is I hold it up to my pot like this and make sure and try and line it up so that the bud union is maybe an inch or so below the top of the rim of the pot. And then I take a look at what I'm going to have to cut off as far as my root. Now, like I said, this is the smallest pot I would do it in. So I would not cut any of these fine feeder roots off. The only thing you need to remove are anchoring roots, which are these thick pencil-like roots. That's just going to prevent it from going down deep in. Because what's worse than cutting off roots, actually something that's worse, is not planting this deep enough. If I were to only plant it this deep, and that top of that was poking out, you'd dehydrate and be dead. You have way too much moisture loss. Sometimes you need to make decisions like this, and you make them all the time. Okay, so I kind of hold that up like this, and I'm just cutting off the anchoring roots. The ones that are going to prevent it from sitting down in the pot deep enough. Because all of these can curve, right? They're all flexible. Anchoring roots. So look how beautiful those roots are. Lots and lots of feeder roots. There's lots of long feeder roots in there. Okay. The next thing I do is you want to try and keep the structure of the roots be as true to that as you can. And so I usually take and kind of hold it like this and try and get all the roots to point downward. Okay. So you can see that they're pointing downward naturally. I'm not shoving it in like this and bending the roots up. Bad, bad, bad. I'll kind of like grab them and kind of put them down in. And I'll gently kind of tease those roots around. And then what I do is I hold the bare root at the level I want it to be when I'm done. Okay, so I hold it there with one hand. If you don't have a bird seed scoop or a feed scoop, you need one. No trowels, man. No trowels. We aren't amateurs here. So I have a big thing of potting mix that I have, and I hold that in place. I hold the bare root in place as I pour soil all around and make sure it's settling as I go. Okay, so you hold that bare root in place. I'm just going to keep filling. Every once in a while, stop, take your fingers gently, very gently. Just make sure there's no air pockets. Okay? You don't want air pockets. Air pockets means your roots will dry out and they can't get water. The water has to be right up next to the root in order for it to absorb it, or pretty dang close to it, I should say. Okay? So once you get so much soil in there, the rose will like hold itself in place. And then I take both of my fingers and I try and settle it. I try and center it. So settle it and center it. I pound it on the sides to make sure it's settled. And then I keep adding. Just keep adding soil. And you just kind of do a little shaky, shaky. Take your fingers as you go. And you want to try and settle the soil a little bit. So there we go. This one got a little off center. So I should have held it for a little bit longer. Not that it matters too much. Sometimes they have to be off to the side because of the shape of the roots. I'm going to put a little bit more soil in there. Because remember, after you water, your soil settles. So you want it to be a little higher when it's first potted than when you want it to be after it's watered because it's going to settle, and you don't want it to settle below that root line because those roots will be exposed. They'll dry out and die. Bad, bad, bad. You can never have too much soil up the stem of a rose. As we know, roses are great at air layering. They're great at rooting. It's totally okay to bury that that stem. And I forgot to prune it before I put it in here. What did I say? Prune, shoots, not roots, and the only thing I pruned off was roots. That's hilarious. So let's do some pruning on this rose, okay? So I'm going to look at this, and sometimes it's easier when the soil is holding it for you. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 canes, okay? This one has a little bit of a crack on the one side. I'm just going to take that out. Huge cane. Moly. Anything that's really little, like that's little, that's just going to sap energy. And I want to take everything down 6 to 8 inches. Okay. Actually, let's take this whole thing down. Come see my loppers. These canes are so thick. I don't know if I've ever seen canes thick before. Okay, and I'll look down at it. Honestly, I'm going to take this one out. This one is like crossing over this one, and I don't like that structure. I'm going to take that down to the soil line. Take that out. Okay, so that's what it looks like. 6 to 8 inches left. The bud union is just below the soil, freshly pruned. I'm gonna come in, give it a little spray of water, just because that's important. I'm gonna keep those canes moist before I get the watering goes out. Okay. So after you're done, it's really important that you get this watered as soon as you can. Your first watering on bare roses after you plant them is your most important watering of that rose in its entire history of its life. Because remember what we talked about with peat moss? If peat moss it's really hard to get moist. And so you got to water, let it sit, go back and water again, let it sit, go back and water again. You need to slowly introduce that peat moss to water. And sometimes what I do, a friend taught me this trick, and it's incredible, is you pre-wet your soil before you start. You can literally just, in your bucket, take a hose and mix it up and kind of pre-moisten it and mix it really good and get it not too moist. You don't want it muddy. You still want to be able to work it in. But just getting that peat moss moistened is going to be super important. Okay, so let's spread the canes. The first time you water, normally I'll be watering with a watering wand with a shower filter on it. But because our irrigation is off here in Utah, I'm just going to water with my watering can here. And you're going to notice with peat moss that it'll kind of like float at the top because it's not absorbing. You have to water it, let it sit, and water it again, let it sit, water it again, let it sit. The first time you water is so critical. So make sure you don't just water it and walk away because you won't believe how much water peat moss and potting mix can absorb. It's a lot. It's way more than you think that it is. So it's really important that you don't just like hit it a little bit. Like the little bit I did here, like I will use this entire container at least on this. You just you want to water it, let it sit, let it soak, and then you'll know you're done because it'll start to go out the bottom as you do a little at a time. That it's soaked the whole way down through that root zone, that profile. Okay. So the next most important thing after you plant your bare root roses, the most important thing is what? Moisture. It's still the most important thing. Not fertilizer, none of that. So one thing you can do, and in the years that I did this, I'm really glad I did it. I don't always do it because it can get expensive, but you can put a mulch on top of this to help keep your soil moist because it's so important. I could do a whole thing on just mulch, but if you want to put some mulch on the top of your soil, it's a really good idea. Anything you can do to keep that soil moist, but not soaking wet with good drainage hole. Good. The one thing I forgot to do, and I didn't do it, is another thing I do is I'll put some humate in my potting mix. You can put it on top and kind of work it down in a little bit, but it does help. The nice thing about humate is You can read the instructions on your bag, but you really can't use too much of it. Um, Normally I would work that into the soil, but I forgot to do that this time. But adding humic into your potting mix is so helpful. It'll help with better nutrient uptake that's naturally in the soil as it degrades. It helps hold moisture. So how long does it take for this thing to leaf out? Let's talk about that a little bit, and then I'm going to go look at questions. Although I've been talking so much, maybe too many. But so every rose is different. They're just like kids. Some varieties take a long time to leaf out. Some will already be starting on the way there. Like all they need is a couple days of form and that nice humid environment in the bag, and they're ready to go. Others take longer. So you just be patient. There are some roses that can take 6 to 8 weeks before they bud out. If it's cold in your area where you're at and you put them outside so they naturally acclimate, they're not going to leaf out until it's warm enough out. Okay. So so the most important thing to do is to try and keep these canes moist too, like because while it's kind of leaking out. So like I said, get yourself a good little spritz bottle, keep them moist. If you have a late bloomer, if you have one that's taking a long time, or you get a bare rose in the mail from another vendor, or maybe it's from us, hopefully not, that maybe just got a little dried out and it's taking a little bit longer. You can do something called sweating. I thought I had my plastic bags, but I'll do a whole thing on sweating because that's really for later. I wanted to mostly focus today on what you do immediately when you're bare. So that's what I do. It's that simple. I'm going to keep adding water to this because it's not done yet. It is not done yet. Your first and most important watering of this entire rose's life first when you're mixing your potting in a potting soil with the. So I'm going to go look and see if I have a question. Oh, that's right. I have it on my phone. Okay. Let's see. All right, that's dirt all over the place though. I've never used Humate before. Humate brand. Humate comes in the one that I have is an IFA brand called Bounce for Humate. You'll find it all different, but most likely you'll find it at like ag and feed stores and really good garden centers. You just walk in and ask for Humate, and they're gonna know what you're talking about. But it looks like coal. Little things of coal. Did I say add cumin? No, not cumin. Although I do love cumin. It's a right salad. It's good. Cumin. Yes, we'll do mulch. Yes, I can do a thing on mulch. Sharon says she automatically mulches after. Really, really good tip. Moisture is so important. Good drainage is so important. As you can you probably can't see, but it's starting to drain out the bottom of my container here, which is a good first sign, but it doesn't mean all that peat moss has absorbed moisture. It's still floating on the top, which means it takes time for that potting soil to absorb. Yeah, the reason. Let's talk a little bit about the reason. Let's prune another rose because I think this is important. This is the number one people. I don't know why. Maybe because I've done this for so long and it like doesn't worry me at all. But it worries a lot of people pruning their roses. Let's take this to the side and let it drain. Let's prune some more roses together because this is important. So I should have pruned it before it finds it. So let's see. Oh, I know what this one is. I can tell already. Look how brown those stems are. At first glance, they look dead. It's not. This is Persian yellow. This is a Persica rose. I love this rose. This is on my sleeper list. They're all over the Western United States. They are incredible. They're once blooming. They're spring bloomers. But what a show, man. If you like Forsythia and wish you could have Forsythia or the Forsythia blooms longer and prettier, you need this. I love this rose. This thing is incredible. Not so great in humid climate. Get some black spots this time. So this is definitely a dry period. So if I were to get this rose, actually the roots look great. I would look down on this. See all these little stems? Just get rid of all the little stems. The reason why you're pruning is you're removing um, you're removing the energy requirements of your plant to leaf out. Um, you are taking off less buds. So there's less buds to have to wake it up. So I would also take this down. These things are nasty thorns. I'm telling you, these Bako pruners are really good pruners, but these canes are thick. So you guys want to have some good pair of loppers for some of our canes. Our roses are incredible. I'm going to take these down to 6 to 8 inches and look down at that glove. See how much I cut off? This is kind of of course, these are different roses I'm showing you, but kind of a before and after. Like, I promise you, you are going to have more bud break. You're going to have faster awakening, and you're going to have a more even plant. You're going to have more flowers. What happens when we'll put this back in the water, you don't want to move from water source. Don't want them to dry out. Never want them to dry out, right? What happens if you, let's see, let me grab another really big one. Okay, let's do this. What happens if you have this huge chunky thing? I mean, these are probably 10 inches long. Some of them are 12 inches long. So our grower cuts them to 10 inches on purpose. And so most of them are about 10. What happens when you have so much of that, it has a hard time pulling up water, and it needs more energy, it needs more time, it needs moisture, it needs more everything. And that takes longer. And so it is it's a normal practice in commercial horticulture to prune these suckers back. Prune out anything that's small. The other's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 really big ones and 2 small ones. I'm taking those small ones out. You don't need those. And we're going to take all of those back 6 to 8 inches. Okay, and the angle at which you do it at this point does not matter. I promise you, commercial growers do this with bandsaws. Do not overthink it at this stage. Do not overthink it. There we go. That is the perfectly pruned bare root rose. I didn't prune any roots. Now, if I were, let's just plant this up. Let's complete the process. Here's one of my 5-gallon buckets. Got good drainage. Now that it's pruned, I would hold it up. I would make sure that that is below. And I'm going to have to cut off some of these anchoring roots. Just the big ones, not the little ones, just the big ones. Just so it sits down in there okay. That's it. Just a few snips of the anchoring roots. I left all of that on. Okay, then I would grab it like this, put it down in, take one hand and hold it in the center at the level you want it, and then start filling. Okay, that is the exact way you do it. Pull it out. Let's prune this one together. This one is blushing drift. Guys, blushing drift is the best blooming drift rose out there. It's light pink. Do you guys have color? It's one of the newer drifts on the market. I forgot stems everywhere. The other thing you need to make sure you have is a garbage can near you. It's the thing I always forget, so I'm using a pot. Blushing drift is an incredible drift rose. Super floriferous. Beautiful baby pink. Super disease resistant. One of the best drifts. I think it's the best drift that there is. So this one's kind of funny. They're all different. This one's a little bit different. So first of all, I inspect the roots. They look good. Then I look down on it from the top down, and I see, ooh, those are crossing. Get rid of those. Let me get rid of anything that's crossing. And you want to try and keep it as even as you can. Take that one out too. Take that one out. And that's what I would leave. I would leave those 3 stems. And it went from a bare root rose that was like the weirdest shape to a really nice shaped plant with 3 really good stems. Remember, this is a ground cover rose. So it's normal for it to look like that, right? It's never ever going to look like a big, huge, beefy hybrid tea. These are both perfectly pruned. One looks humongo. This is a 1-year-old root. This is a 2-year budded. This one has way bigger canes because it's budded onto a big aggressive rootstock, and it's a whole year older. And it's a different type of rose, right? Completely different rose. This has a lot of polyantha in it, just a different structure. Let's prune a couple more because I think this is really important. How you prune shoots, not roots, unless you need to put a couple anchors down. So let's look at the ideal container. Remember I showed you, like, if you were going to the store and you wanted to pick, I put all my scraps in here. The reason why I picked this, because look, I hardly have to cut up anything, right? Depth is super important. So if I were going to plant this rose, which is Passionate Kisses, hey guys, I'm doing a Facebook Live, so I'm not talking to myself, I promise. some of my friends have walked by and they're like, what is she doing? So this is a rare rose called Passionate Kisses. I love this rose. I saw this for the first time like in Mass at Burner Botanical Garden. And you want to easy plant it and forget it with a beautiful pink. Passionate Kisses is a great rose. Great genetics. So the thing I love about really deep pots is I hardly have to cut any. In fact, these are so flexible that I'm not going to cut anything off. And sometimes you can just put it down in there and see if it can kind of gently go to the side. I'm going to cut a little teeny, tiny bit off a couple of these. Just a teeny tiny bit. There we go. Perfect. And then I would fill that with soil. Now, with big containers like this, I get asked this quite a bit. Can you save money, save soil? Should you fill the bottom with like rocks or bricks or styrofoam or whatever? With a lot of plants, I do that all the time for like annuals. Like things are really shallow rooted. Like it doesn't matter. You just drainage and like filler. But guys, these roots need soil. They do. I highly suggest not using fillers at the base of when you have rose roots that deep. All of these roots need soil to be because they need to get moisture, they need to get nutrients. They don't want to be touching styrofoam, peanuts, and rocks. So unfortunately, with roses, my suggestion is not use filler unless the container is so deep that it goes below the roots. And yeah, you could fill in underneath there. I think it's okay. But for this container, what I'm looking at where it sits, I wouldn't put filler in. So let's prune this rose and then I'll take some more questions. And then, so this is Passionate Kisses. So you can see there's a whole bunch of branches in there. We're just going to open this up a bit. This one's crossing inside, it's going inward. I'm going to take that out. Anything going inward, you want to open it up. All right, so anything going inward, you take out. Anything really small, anything that is like growing right beside each other. Down to that, and then you want to take it down to like 6 to 8 inches. That off. There we go. Yeah, that's a perfectly pruned rose. That took a lot off, but that is perfectly shaped. And this is how every first horticulturist does this. Okay, don't be afraid of this. Don't be afraid of this step. The whole thing. But I'm gonna put this right back in the water, so I'm not gonna put that. The whole thing with doing it at a certain angle toward the bud that's outward facing, that's all like down the street, especially for hyperteam. Doesn't really apply to like for abundant shrubs and things like that. They can just get haircuts. So don't be afraid to prune. Prune, choose not roots. And only a few roots you absolutely have to, and only anchoring roots. So let's take some questions. Maybe I'll sit a little closer and see you guys. Holiday asks, Heidi, can you explain if you do anything different for own root versus grafted roses? So the only thing I do different is sometimes the budded roses are budded really high, and so you just need to plant it a little bit deeper. So the primary thing I do is just measure that, lay it against the side of the pot and make sure that bud union is low enough. But as far as like the soil or watering or pruning, no, it's really all the same. The bigger budded roses are going to be bigger, thicker canes, but the end result needs to be the same. It needs to be open, as even all the way around as you can, and down to 6 to 8 inches. Let's see. Which mulch do I like for pots? Brands, please. I'm a big fan of mulch that's made from core. I think I posted that in a blog once. I really like core products. COIR. Core is like a coconut type of mulch. I always suggest, and you have to be careful with mulches because when mulches break down, they need nitrogen to do that. So the composting system, the way composting works, is the balance between carbon, nitrogen, greens and browns. And when everything is naturally decaying in nature, right? It's always going to naturally decay. Things that are organic. So when you use a mulch, and if you use one that has a lot of like inner wood of a tree, usually the really, really cheap stuff, or like pallets that have been chopped up and colored for mulch, those have a ton of carbon in them. It's mostly cardwood, it's mostly dead, it's not living tissue. And so it needs a lot of nitrogen to break down. And so you just need to make sure you fertilize your roses as they're leaking out more. So that's why I always suggest like a bark-based mulch. You can even use like a rubber mulch is okay. Sometimes they get a little hot, but never, ever, ever do you ever use rocks or stones, things that superheat the soil and release heat at night. So don't ever use that. That's really, really bad. You can burn your roots. So anything that, there's as many mulches as but I really do love like coconut core fiber based mulches. Let's see. Oh gosh. Oh no. Did you ever like scroll up in Facebook and then you like comments? Okay. Okay, I'll look on here since I'm closer. Pine mulch. You can use pine mulch. Pine mulch, sometimes when pine needles break down, it can acidify your soil a little bit. So just keep that in mind depending upon where you live. And will you recommend mushroom composting? Absolutely. I love mushroom compost. Remember the word compost, though. Compost is meant for amending, meant to amend your soil, not to plant directly in, including mushroom compost. So I use mushroom compost in my beds here in Utah. I have a bed that had junipers in it for years and years and years, and the soil is just it's terrible. It's really bad. So every year I've been putting a lot of mushroom compost in and tilling it in, and it's slowly getting better. So, see, can we use fish emulsion as the fertilizer for bare roots after they start budding and leafing? Good question. I love fish emulsion or fish-based fertilizers, organic fertilizers. But one thing that's super important to note with bare roots, and if you don't remember anything else I tell you today other than moisture is important, this is the next most important thing. So listen up. Never fertilize your roses until they have completely leafed out. Not when they're first budding, not when they're unfurling, but when they get their first full entire flush. Then you can start a fertilizer program. I love seaweed-based fish emulsion fertilizers. There's so many different ones. Maybe we'll have to do an entire class on fertilizers because I could spend hours talking about that. I like an organic-based one, especially on the first hit. Because remember, your roots are young. They're just starting to come out. All those new roots are coming out. And organic-based fertilizers work with the soil profile, and they're going to support microbiomes. They're not going to be fast-acting. So I've had several people ask me, and we'll dive deep more into this on another live, but I think I want to finish with this because it's important. Because some of you have already gotten your roses and they're already starting to leaf out. So you're probably having questions already in your mind about fertilizing. Whenever you use like a liquid fertilizer, let's say like the Miracle Grow, the blue crystal stuff, I don't want to like put Miracle Grow under the bus, but whenever you use those types of fertilizers on roses, it actually damages your soil biome and it forces you to have to use more of it. So yes, you get a big, huge flush. You get tons of flowers, but just know that you're going to have to continually feeding it. Whereas if you take care of your soil, and if you use things that support your microbiome. Other thing I'm going to recommend to you, and I forgot, I can't believe I didn't talk about this, and then I'll take some more questions, is the other thing I do recommend is like mycorrhizing. So this is what I got at Walmart. You know, you're going to have 5,000 different brands and versions of mycorrhizae. Um, mycorrhizae is so important for your soil biome. It's going to support microbes. It's gonna help with water uptake, with nutrient uptake. So this is, I would recommend you can mix this in with your when you plant too. So this one's called Plant Success Organics. It's bought it at Walmart, but you can buy lots of different mycorrhizal products. Um, so make sure to read your instructions. Every mycorrhizal product like comes with a different carrier and how much you need to use. But with all mycorrhizal products, it's really, really important that it's touching the roots as much as possible. So you want them to create those symbiotic relationships so that bacteria has to be close to the roots. So what I should have done when I planted this is while I was planting it, sprinkle some on the roots and let it touch the roots and put some soil around it. So that's how you use mycorrhizae. You can actually dig holes down in around existing plants and put mycorrhizal like granulars down in there, and that can help. But the best time to use mycorrhizae is when you plant because your roots are all exposed. So I can talk more about that maybe when we do the fertilizer thing. But do not fertilize your roses until they're completely leafed out. Between potting in the wrong soil, not enough moisture. The third thing I saw the most pictures of is because people were over fertilizing when they were starting to leaf out. Like, let me show you this one. This one's starting to bud out. Look how this one's enormous. Oh, tequila. Look at this tequila. Oh my, holy moly. Award-winning rose, by the way, Mayon. You can see this one's starting to leaf out. Like the buds are starting to push. That is not time to fertilize. Worst time possible ever to fertilize. Because all of these new little root initiation cells that are going to start here very, very soon, it usually starts right after you get those buds to start pushing. You'll start getting new root initiation cells. I don't see any yet, but it's going to happen very soon. They're very sensitive to high nitrogen fertilizer. You need to wait until those leaves fully come out and are fully photosynthesizing. Okay, so really important. Dawn asked me if I use any starter. No, I don't use any starter fertilizer other than put humate in, because you can't ever use too much humate. You can't burn plants with humate or the mycorrhizae. You could add in some that fertilome root stimulator into your water when you're watering the plants. That's okay as long as you're following instructions. So, but that's not really nutrients. It's rooting hormone. So, let's see what else we got here. Holiday says I only use the Pro Mix alone. It has the biofungicide and mycorrhizae included. Yeah, sometimes when you get, especially like independent garden centers will carry really high quality potting mixes that carry mycorrhizae in it, or maybe like biochar, or even you'll see like humus or humate. Sometimes they'll mix it in. Those are really high quality mixes. I mean, they're more expensive. Remember, you pay for what you get with soil. You know, I mean, I think that's the way it is in a lot of things in life, but especially true with soil. So, okay, biotone or rose tone. Okay, Trisha, that's a good question. Once your roses start leafing out, which one should you use, biotone or rose tone? I would use biotone first. Biotone is developed and formulated. It's an Espoma product to help this exact process. It's like it reduces transplant stress, it helps get things going, it supports your microbiome, it had some nutrients in it. I think it has green sand in it too, which I like. So maybe the first, if you were to pick, you had biotone and rose tone, and your leaves are fully flushed out, right? And you want to give it a little bit. I would do biotone first, and then do rose tone later. Now, is it going to make or break whether you use one or the other? I think they're both really good products, but the biotone does have that extra starter ingredient in it. Okay. It is 4:30. We've been on for an hour and a half. There's probably a million questions in here. What I'll try and do later maybe is go through and answer some of them. I want to let you guys all go because I know this is kind of long, but it's important. And just keep in mind that the most important thing is moisture, temperature, speaking of great soil. Okay. And prune, 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 shoots not roots, unless you have to prune a few of those very, very strategic anchoring roots, because you don't want that rose sticking up out of the soil after you water and it settles, right? So that those anchoring roots are going to prevent that from doing that. So thanks, guys. And I think I want to end with, there's about as many ways to garden and plant as there are varieties of roses, and this is just my personal experience. And I imagine, I know, not imagine, I know a lot of you are very, very successful. So don't hesitate to share how you do and what you do. This is just my personal opinion and experience, and really designed just for the beginners. Once you really get into it, you're going to find your mix, what you like to use. So anyway, you guys have a great night, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.